Hello, Divine Femmes. It's Jessica Ann from the Divine Femme Collective. And today we are looking at why you keep attracting breadcrumbs and the pyramid that changes everything. So there's an evolution that has to take place if you want to move from tolerating breadcrumbs to attracting a conscious, emotionally available partner and partnership. And most women are trying to skip these levels. So let me break this down in a way that makes sense. Because if your current reality looks like men who put in low effort, who don't initiate, who don't lead, plan, or pursue, and you're feeling activated, anxious, or you're in your chasing energy because of it, this is not because your needs are too much. It's because you're operating from the wrong level of this pyramid. And I'm going to tell you a personal story which highlighted this for me in real time. I want to, before we go into the pyramid, I want to express that when you get to the higher levels of this pyramid in your evolutionary journey, you actually begin to find that men are responding to your energy, which is why the work we do in the receptivity codes is vital. Working from the ground up, from the inside out, transforming your self-concept and your internal beliefs and creating your identity as the woman who moves from her queen consciousness, who knows what she expects, who knows how to operate in polarity, who doesn't slip into roles such as the coach, the mother, the therapist. Because what happens when you do that, when you are unconsciously leading from that, because you are still operating from an attachment wound, which is trying to earn love or trying to prove your value by being someone who is nurturing, it doesn't work in partnership with a healthy masculine man, because healthy masculine men want to be or will pursue and commit to women who evokes their leadership energy. And what happens is when you're overcompensating, so when you're overfunctioning due to these unconscious patterns, you are not giving or you're not attracting or allowing that space to be created for him to show up and lead in the way that you desire, because he is energetically shifting into the role, in this case of the child, which I'm going to explain a bit more how it actually happened for me in true life. So this pyramid, just before I go on, I actually saw it from a different coach and I thought it was fantastic, which is why I'm using it. So I'm not taking credit for this evolutionary structure, but it's perfect. So I couldn't have made it better myself. So level one is self-worth and self-respect. So this is the foundation. Do you have a sense of, do you have high expectations? Are you still choosing from survival? Are you choosing what's familiar based on your family of origin and the assumptions that you internalized? That's where we deal with the foundation, right? So for example, for me, when I first came to this work 7 years ago, my baseline was actually this fixer role and this rescuing men was heavy then. And what it attracted was deeply narcissistic, deeply men who were in their arrested development, men who were not functioning, men who I was supporting financially, men who didn't have jobs. I would be working, but they would be at home sitting in my house. But this is not a blame situation. This is because that was what was true for me. This was how low my expectations were, because that was what had been modeled to me. That's what I saw. So I had a belief that men were not able to provide because I did not see providers in my home. So 7 years ago, my self-worth and my self-love in terms of like what I would attract and what I was safe, what felt familiar to me, why my desire was why other men who were on the same level as me, I was educated, I was leadership, I was making good money, I was a high achieving woman, but none of these professional men were attractive to me because in my foundation, my identity was very low. What I expected was very low. So self-worth is what you believe you deserve. Self-respect is what you tolerate or don't. What you tolerate or you don't. If this foundation is not solid, you will explain away inconsistency, bare minimum, emotional unavailability, low effort, because part of you doesn't yet expect to receive better. So there's no polarity, there's no seduction, there's no feminine magnetism that works at this level at all, because if that level is shaky, you're not even operating from a position of truth. You're performing. At that level, you're still deeply either in unconscious or conscious performance. I guess by the time you come to my work, you're already a woman who's starting to be deeply aware that there is a problem, that you keep repeating patterns, you keep attracting the same kind of men, and it's not what you desire. You've had a spiritual awakening, you've done inner work, but nothing has shifted yet because we need to work at that foundational level. Level 2 is emotional regulation and self-connection. And so this is where you stop outsourcing your power and your safety to men. And I want to pause here because I think this is really important. I've seen polarized opinions on this where some women are saying, this kind of advice of asking women to develop that safety within is harmful and counterproductive because you're trying to, the whole point is that it's not on the woman to create safety within herself when she's only ever experienced non-safety, and creating more responsibility for someone to create safety on their own rather than expecting safety to come from a mutual partnership is a kind of unhelpful advice, which I actually don't agree with because of my personal experience. Because internal safety comes from having the ability to regulate your own emotions, to be able to sit with your own discomfort, and to develop the emotional intelligence that allows you to communicate your needs and to have a nervous system that is regulated to communicate in a way where you're not braced, where you are open to be vulnerable, and that you can communicate in a way that is grounded, where you can be heard, where you can be felt. But if you haven't created that internal safety for yourself on that level, if you're reactive, if you're not working on deep levels within your body, if you can't sit with discomfort, if you numb yourself away, you're not going to create the conditions to allow safety to be co-created, co-regulation. You can't attune if you don't have that ability within yourself to do that. That's my personal opinion. So, and everybody's got to find their own way. But personally, when you stop trying to make a man create the safety for you, rather than take it as information that that your body is actually guiding you, that this isn't a safe situation. Because to be honest, a healthy masculine man will you will feel the safety of that connection. It's only when you're giving your body to a man who is not claiming you, when your deepest desire is to be claimed and to have the safety of honesty and shared commitment and something real, rather than a situationship, but you're tolerating less than what you wanted, maybe in the need that something would change, maybe in the belief that he would grow to love you if you proved yourself hard enough. Often that the fact that it doesn't feel safe is because it isn't safe. And you know it on a deep, deep level, but you're overriding it because you haven't dealt with the attachment wounding and the nervous system survival patterning and the maladaptive patternings that are keeping you going back to something that isn't real, which is why at that foundational level, that's where the work begins. So you're learning to self-soothe and stay grounded in your own body. You're staying connected to yourself instead of self-abandoning yourself for connection. And without this level, attraction turns into attachment and chemistry turns into anxiety. So level 3 is where you are now getting really clear with your needs, your boundaries, and your standards. This is the end result work of the receptivity codes. Not only do we, with precision, laser sharp focus, tune into the patterns and the underlying patterns and beliefs and assumptions that are driving your current reality and what you are currently drawn to and desire and experience and tolerate, to rewiring not only your nervous system so that you can move into more secure ways of being in your intimate partnerships. But what you're then doing is you're actually crafting your identity and you're stepping into what do I actually need in sex? What do I need to feel loved? What do I need as a non-negotiable and a prerequisite to feel safe? Do I expect a man to actually initiate and plan dates? This becomes a standard. I had such a low level, low belief, low expectation that for much of my life, up until at least 30, 33, I didn't even expect to be taken on a date. So what do you then you start receiving? You receive men that just come and eat your pussy. Or come and and you're giving that geek girlfriend life and that wife life to men that show you such contempt and disrespect because they're resentful as well, because they've chosen. It's terrible. It's terrible. But this is not the podcast for that. This is a different podcast. So let's go back. This is where women get stuck with their standards needs. They know what they want, but they don't express it cleanly, calmly, or consistently. Or the worst thing that you do, and I've done this myself, is setting boundaries but not holding them. And this level is about becoming clear without chasing, firm without over-explaining, but also making sure that you are able and willing to walk away when a man is not stepping up. If a man is not rising to meet you and you allow yourself to tolerate that and go back when you break your own boundaries, that man is not going to take you seriously. So whatever you're trying to do to create that partnership with them, to be claimed, to be in a healthy, normal partnership where he steps up, where he's in protector mode, provision, cherish, he's not going to do that when you don't hold your boundaries. And that's the best test, that if you are willing to walk away, if he doesn't step up, it's because he doesn't want to. And he wasn't going to. So you've just received the information that you needed to allow you to move on to something that's more aligned. So level 4 is play, presence, and polarity. And this is where feminine magnetism comes in. This is where understanding the art of seduction. This is where understanding the feminine arts, mystery, playfulness, learning how to flirt. This is where things shift dramatically. This is where feminine magnetism lives. In play, in lightness, in mystery, seduction, in your presence. This is where you stop managing connection and you allow the man to step into leadership. Polarity only works when you are grounded, self-connected, and not trying to build him, because polarity collapses the moment you step into the coach, the therapist, the healer, the fixer, the savior. And this is where my own story comes in. This is the pattern I had to see, and I got to see. I did not realize for such a long time that my relationship with men was shaped by my relationship with my father. So my father was a man that actually I pitied. He lived in poverty. He had no drive. He struggled with addiction. He didn't lead. He didn't provide. There was no provision. And as a child, I internalized the belief that men couldn't provide. Men couldn't lead. Men needed help. And this wasn't just in my father, who did not live with me. This was the man who was my stepfather as well. So this was modeled by the two role models that I had. The two masculine figures were men that did nothing. You were absolutely incapable. God. So unconsciously, I became the ride or die woman. The woman who builds the man, supports the man, sees his potential, holds him together emotionally. This is the foundations of emotional labor. Overfunctioning. And here's the truth, girl, that nobody tells you. Men do not pursue or commit to the woman who stabilizes them. When I stepped into the helper and the coach or the therapist, this is when the polarity inverted. I moved into the masculine role. And energetically, he moved into the child. No leadership, no pursuit, no claiming. Not because he was a bad man, but because my presence didn't evoke his leadership. Because I was leading and driving from the belief, the misguided belief that if I proved that I was valuable enough, I would be able to prove that I was worth being a wife. Until I transformed that and saw it, nothing changed. The same pattern kept repeating. So why this doesn't work? Men commit to women. They feel they can lead. Men pursue women whose presence calls them forward. So if you are saving, fixing, being the rescuer, and this was the moment that it literally dawned on me. He turned to me and said, because he wasn't planning dates, he wasn't doing he wasn't chasing, he wasn't pursuing, he wasn't initiating. And one day he said, you should be my coach. You should be you should be my spiritual director or coach. And that literally, it was like a lightning bolt moment when I realized, fuck, I have I have actually inverted the polarity. Men don't want women to rescue them from themselves. And this also was really interesting because when the ghost of lovers past came to me because I again, if you're going to listen to all of the podcasts, you'll know the story. But just a very 30-second recap is in November 24, I decided I wanted sacred union after like quite 6 or 7 years of celibacy and being on my journey back to self, back to my power, and wanting to really come home to myself. And as soon as I did that, the universe sent me, or my magnetic field magnetized 3 significant men, in fact 4, but 3 significant men from my past. 2 of them were men that I truly deeply wanted, the only 2 men in my whole history that I actually wanted to build, I wanted to be the wife. And one of them was the catalyst. So one was the guy that I'm actually talking about with this healer therapist realization. He was the guy who came back after 10 years that I really thought, wow, this is it. He's come back and we're going to get together and this is my sacred union and da-da-da. But no, he was a catalyst. He was the guy to show me, hang on, this is what's going on. But one of the other guys, he was the trigger to my first spiritual awakening, and he came back, and our relationship dynamic was deeply dysfunctional and destructive. But he had the same exact story as my dad's. The 2 men, he was into substances. He did not work. He did not provide. He was abusive. He was deeply in a wounded masculine, and he said to me something really interesting when we had a chat. And that was, you tried to help me and I resented you for that. He literally said, you were, you gave me money, you did all of these things, and that put him into deeper levels of shame. He's actually married now and he actually had an awakening. I don't know whether he's changed in terms of his control and his violence and the coercive control that he was going on with at the time. Who knows? And maybe again, people react differently in different situations with different energies. But I would hope that he treats his wife well, you know. But there we go. But that was really insightful. So my old belief was if I help him, he'll choose me. But my new identity is I am chosen because I am grounded, self-led, and receptive. I no longer heal men. I no longer build men. I no longer audition for love, because at the core, that's what it is. When you're trying to help, overhelp, fix, men don't step up. They actually move into the energy that you're creating the space for. And when you shift this, they will shift or not. And it's time to move on. But this is why I say everything begins with us. It begins within. And the final level is attracting conscious partnership. When the pyramid is solid, when self-worth, emotional intelligence regulation, your boundaries, your standards, and your polarity is embodied, you don't attract projects anymore. You don't attract men who don't have their lives together, who are still figuring things out. Like, you attract an interdependent partner because you are open to that. And what happens is you attract men who initiate, lead, choose, commit, cherish, because your nervous system is no longer asking or broadcasting, can you be saved? It's asking, can you meet me here? Whew, chill, chill, chill. And the right man always can. So in the comments, drop me your insights. What's the most insightful thing you've heard today? What is something that you want to challenge? What is something that lights you up? What's something that you can take away and go and integrate right now? And if not, DM me and join, and it's 11:11 a.m. right now. Come and join me in the receptivity codes. It's a high touch, one-to-one membership. It's a hybrid between one-to-one work, where we get to work together and I get to use my skill set in zooming in, my projector mirroring, and my projector pattern, laser shot pattern interruption and recognition to help identify the core patterns. And then we're going to actually recode your subconscious. I'm going to put you in the community aspect of it, where you get to do daily energetic work. There'll be activations, there'll be subconscious recodes and identity work. So we're working on a level of identity to transform this from the inside out on 3 different levels: the neurological, the somatic, and the energetic. And this is a very intimate and small container. I'm only taking 3 women right now because the work is deep and the work is potent. So if you are ready to rewire your desire, to rewire your attraction blueprint, and really start to build your power, come into the evolution of embodied power, and start attracting and raising your standards and attracting the kind of conscious partnership that you want and not tolerating less than, I'd love to have you in the receptivity codes. If you love this podcast, I'd love you to share it with a friend. If you're interested in applying to be in the receptivity codes, please reach out. You can contact me at the Divine Femme Collective 888@gmail.com. DM me on Facebook, Instagram, the Jess of Divine Femme, or on TikTok.